Hi guys, okay, so this is baseline test number 3 of 3. So this is the final one that you'll be doing, and this is going to look at some different skills than what we've looked at previously. You will have done an observational drawing just by looking at the picture on its own. You will have done one using facial proportions, and then this is one using a technique that we call transfer. So some of you will be very confident and you'll know exactly how to do things like this. Others, it might be new to you. But either way, I'm just going to show you some tips and tricks for trying to get the portrait as accurate while still adding all the detail in observationally. Okay, so in your booklet, you've got this photograph of the lady here. If for any reason you don't have a booklet, but you can print off a picture of somebody else, black and white, or even in colour, you can have a go at that one instead. But for the purposes of the video, I'm going to use the booklet that we should all have at home. So I'm going to turn to the photograph of the lady, and I'm going to go to the back of that image. Okay, so you can see there that I've just flipped it over. And I'm going to take a pencil. I've only got 2B at the moment, which is probably a little bit heavier than what I would like to use. But any pencil that you've got at home will be absolutely fine. And you're just going to very lightly, and I do this by holding my pencil with my finger rested on top just towards the end of the pencil rather than holding it down here at the bottom. So I hold it from the end like that, and I rest my finger on top, and I very lightly, not applying too much pressure, shade in the back of the image. Now, really important for this stage is that we don't end up with loads of white gaps. So we don't want to see it like this and like this. Okay, it needs to be consistent, and we want minimal, if any, white gaps showing. Okay, so I'm going to cover the whole of the back of the woman's face. A really good way to check that you've covered the whole of her face is to hold it up to a window or to a light, and you'll see the outline of the woman's face if it's been completely covered. So that'll do just for now, but the rest of you need to make sure that you've got like the neck and everything covered. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my sketchbook. I'm going to put it pencil side down onto the paper. Okay, and using any sort of tape that you have at home, the only thing I have to hand at the moment is this rather nifty looking washi tape, which is similar to masking tape, but it's got a bit of a pattern on it. It's a little bit thinner. So I'm going to tear off a piece of that, rip it in half, and I'm just going to tack the top 2 corners to my sketchbook page. Top 2 corners are really important. It's so it doesn't swing around, it doesn't move about whilst you're using it. I'm just going to fold it over the top of the page here and fold it over the top of the page there. Okay, so it's nice and smooth. Okay, and that's lay on top, so it's pencil side down onto the paper. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a biro or a ballpoint pen. The difference between a ballpoint pen like this, for instance, and a fine liner pen like this one is that here is the inked nib on there, and it will do the job, but not whilst we're applying pressure. Whereas on a ballpoint pen, you'll see that there's a very small ball at the top of the pen there, and it rolls into the ink and back out onto the paper. It means that we can apply a bit more pressure without damaging a fine liner's nib like that. So we don't want to use anything like this one, so I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm going to go back to my ballpoint or biro pen. Okay, so I'm going to take this pen, and what I'm looking for here is, I don't want to transfer or trace the entire image and all of the details. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some of the basic detail and information from this image onto the paper underneath, so that I can do a combination of transfer and observational detail drawing. So in a previous video, I did mention to you that observational drawing hasn't always been my strongest suit. Now there's other teachers in the faculty who can draw pretty much anything that you put in front of them. But for me personally, with a background of graphic design, it's not my strongest suit. That's absolutely fine. Something that I am very good at though is pulling and adding detail, and I'll show you that in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with just generally the shape of the eyes. You might find it easier to rotate your sketchbook into a different position, but I'm just going to get in the general shape of the eyes. Okay, notice that I'm taking my time. Notice that I'm doing lots of little pen marks rather than one continuous line all the way around. So I'm still kind of sketching with the pen. I'm going to get in the pupil, which is the coloured part of your eye. And then anything else that I can see in there. Now, the only things that I can see super bold on there is I can see this little white reflection there. And I can see that there's a bit of shading under the eye, so I'm just going to add a line there. And I can see that there's an eyelid here. And now when it comes to the eyebrow, what we see a lot of the time when we see students drawing eyebrows is we see this sort of thing. Now, if your eyebrows look like that, well, that's highly unfortunate, but for the most part, we all have individual eyebrow hairs. But what we are going to do for the sake of this transfer, because we're adding the detail later, is I'm very lightly, so I'm like I would do if I was shading, very lightly going to just outline the shape of the eyebrow. And I'll show you why in a moment. And when it comes to, say, the nose, I'm not going to do the whole face, but I'm just going to show you parts of it. I'm going to outline or transfer parts of the face that I can notice. Well, that'll help me at a later point. And that could be the outlines of shadows like that bit, if I want it to be. It could just be the outside of the lip, but then also where the shadow bit is. And where that line is there, I'm just doing half, and it could just be the outline of the face and the neck. Now you can transfer as much or as little detail as you want. I suggest that you start off with as little detail. We don't want to become too heavily reliant on anything like this, but it is a really, really good way for those of you who don't have that natural skill of observational drawing. It's a really good way for you to still be good at drawing and good at art without, you know, losing complete confidence altogether. So transferred bits of detail there, and if I was to remove my image now, you can see I've got some basic details there underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my picture for now, because I'm not going to do the whole woman's face. You'll be here for quite a while. And I'm now going to have the two images side by side. Now, another thing that I find really, really important when I'm doing any sort of drawing whatsoever from an image, it is to position my photograph in the best way possible for me to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the image in half, and now I've got the two images side by side really close together. The biggest thing here is having them close together so that I can look backwards and forwards throughout the whole thing. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my pencil that I had previously, and I'm going to start to work in and add any bits of detail that I can include in shading and tone. So I'm going to look for where is dark, where is light, where is shaded, and I'm going to use my pencil to do that. Now, you can do this however you want. You can do it more like mark maker, you do it perfectly shaded, it's entirely up to you. But for me, I'm going to start off just by outlining and going over these shapes. So I'm going to do like the eyelid, for instance, there. Again, I'm going to turn my sketchbook so I've got a little bit more room. And I'm going to have a look at the pupil here. The whole time that I'm drawing, my eyes should be going backwards and forwards between the image. Now I can see very, very faintly that there is a darker black area here. Now we know what that bit's going to be because we know it's going to be the pupil. So I can add that in. And I also know, because of my knowledge of portraits and faces and eyes and anatomy, that that shape is going to be perfectly round. So I'm going to colour that in. It's going to be solid black. There. Okay. I can also see that it gradually goes a bit darker to lighter along this area here. So I'm going to go darker to lighter there. And the same on this side. The reason for that is obviously the light is hitting in this direction, so it's creating a shadow under the eyelid. Don't forget those white bits that we left in before for the reflection. Don't want to accidentally colour them in. And again, that's going to shade down a little bit there at the bottom. So I'm just starting to draw what I can see on the image in front of me. Okay, I can see that there's a bit of shading from dark to light here, and that's the white of the eye, so I can add that in. Again, I'm using a 2B pencil here, so it's a little bit heavier than what you might have. So it comes out quite dark quite quickly. There's a little bit of shade in here, so I can see that. And I know that that's going to be in this general area here. So all I'm doing really is mapping out what I can see here and copying it over. And getting all of that detail in. Now under the eye we've got a bit of light shading, so I'm going to try and keep this as light as possible. Bit of light shading under the eye. And that kind of comes around this corner here. And a little bit onto the eyelid. Now this bit here is your eyelid, so it's a crease, and it's going to be darker in the centre of that line. But then we can see that it fades out. We've got a very nice light section here in the middle of the eye. So I'm going to try and leave that bit light while shading the rest of the area. And again, on top of the eyelid there, you can see that this area here, where the top of the eyebrow, the arch of the eyebrow is left quite light. So I'm going to make sure that I leave that area as well. Now granted, when I do these demonstrations, some students are like, yeah, well, you're really good at it, so you make it look really easy. Literally, the only way for me personally to get any better at drawing or shading or adding the details in is literally through practice. It's just practice, practice, practice. So if you think about how many times do you think I've done a demonstration like this on an eye, it's probably now going to be, what, in the hundreds? So every single time I do it, you get that little tiny bit better. You might then have a big gap between doing any drawing, in which case you might lose some of that skill, so you need to practice again and again. Even as an art teacher, we still have to practice our skill. We still have to go through things like this, or demonstrations, or tonal gradients. All the things that you're going to be doing in the booklet now is still the things that we as art teachers do a lot of the time to stay skilled up. Now, I'm going to come to the eyebrow, and you can see that we've just got the general shape, but that's not the shape of our eyebrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to very lightly shade it, just to get a backfill colour in. And then I'm going to look at the direction of the individual eyebrow hairs. Now what I can see from the image is I can see that a lot of these beginning ones are pointing upwards, and then as we're working towards the outside of the eyebrow, they're starting to come, like, fall over and down. So I'm going to do the same thing. Nice sharp pencil. Going to get my individual eyebrow hairs in. They're starting to fall over and down. Build and layer. And we've got a bit of an eyebrow in. Okay, now a lot of you will be tempted to draw these big, massive eyelashes on, but only draw what you can see. So I can see there's a bit of eyelash there. And I can see there's a bit of shading down here, which could also be bits of eyelashes. And a bit of shading. And some small bits of eyelashes there. And then underneath, there's like some really fine shading around here. There's probably eyelashes. And a little bit there as well. In that corner. Okay, so all I've done is I've taken what I can see here and applied it to this bit here instead of the drawing. And you're going to do the exact same thing, but for the whole portrait. And you can go back in at any point and add to it. Now you might only, in the time session that you've got, you might only do, say, the eyes and start the nose or something like that. But what we're looking for is, okay, you might not have that observational drawing skill, but what you might have, like me, is the ability to transfer and copy the detail across even if you can't get the proportions and everything in exactly the right place. So this is a completely different skill, but for some of you it might help. Okay, so good luck. Do your absolute best with it. You know, we always just want 100% effort, nothing less. And it looks like what it looks like in the end. Let us be the judges of that, and let us try and decide the best way that we can help you in art. Okay, that's what we're good at. Be good, be safe.